Hey, good afternoon. We're back in the garage, again working on the Volvo. One of the things that I have left is figuring out how I want to mount this throttle cable. Before, there's a bracket that mounted to the firewall, and the cable end here would mount in that bracket. This cable would then mount onto the linkage here. And one of the things I had noticed, and I actually think just getting this professionally tuned will help quite a bit, but having one end of the cable mounted to the car and the other end of the cable mounted to the engine, as the engine rocked just a little bit, like when you're coming off of idle and it just kind of shifts a tiny bit, it seems like that was always creating kind of a jerky, low input throttle scenario. You know, you kind of give it a little bit of gas, the engine would rock and it would pull on the cable a little bit more further than you wanted. And maybe it was all in my head. I don't know, but I am running a Link ECU on this. I plan to get it tuned professionally, and I think that will help smooth a lot of drivability sort of things out. But one of the things that I think just kind of makes sense would be to mount this a little bit different. Let me show you a couple of the ideas that I have. My first idea was going to be using these aluminum tubes. They're a nice thick wall, so they're very sturdy, very rigid. And on top of the engine here are these bolt holes that used to be for the fuel injectors. My idea was basically get a long bolt, mount it down like so, cut this about half as high, and make a little bracket for the top that then the cable would mount to. So it'd be something kind of like that. One of the things I don't like is how it goes over the valve cover. So anytime you want to take the valve cover on and off, you also have to either, unbolt this whole assembly or at least remove the cable from this. So not a big fan of that, but it would be easy. The other idea is designing some sort of plate that can mount on these rear two manifold studs, kind of kick out to the side, maybe behind the engine, and end up mounting this almost where it would be in its original location, just instead of being fixed to the firewall, it'd be fixed to the engine. Looking at the old engine here, it'd basically be mounting to these two studs, kind of kicking back over and then up. I've got some cardboard. I'm gonna cut out a little bit of a template and just kind of see what shape I would end up needing. Then I can lay it out flat and see, can I go get the material to make this myself and bend it up, or do I take maybe 3 flat pieces and weld them up or something? So I'm gonna mark these holes. I'm just feeling where kind of getting an idea of where those holes are gonna be, and now I'm gonna go punch those out. And kind of see how this will bend. I might actually move this bend slightly further. So this is kind of what we're looking like here. A couple of things that I am thinking about right away is I mentioned like this bend might have to move out a little bit. The cylinder head does bump out here. Hadn't really factored that in. So I think moving it that way is probably going to be beneficial. The other thing too is with the way that this is bent, when looking at the car, you're not going to be able to see or very easily get to the nut that's on this side. So I might actually have to extend this further, and then instead of having this bend to the left like we see, have the upright come up this side and then bend to the right. There we go, version 2. I've gone ahead and just mounted it on the engine in the car. A couple of things that I didn't account for: the thickness of the flanges, the thickness of the washers. So it actually ends up needing to go back probably, I don't know, at least an inch, probably at least an inch and a half, probably an inch and a half. I ended up with something like that. It looks a little Loch Ness Monster or Brontosaurus-like, I guess. So there it is back there. It still would end up moving towards the driver's side about 1/4 of an inch or so, which I think will end up being just about perfect for this. I mean, it's not that flimsy. I could at least cut a proof of concept out of it. I don't have anything else planned for it. So I've mounted it to the old engine, and I am a little nervous. So it's gonna get kind of pulled that way, and it does flex more than I'd probably like. I mean, these throttle bodies don't take a ton to open, but you kind of see right in here, it's flexing. It does flex kind of up here, kind of tack something in here to stiffen it up. Not quite sure. I mean, I could go with a thicker material and cut all this again. I could draw this up and have either Justin cut it out for me from EV Solutions or use Send Cut Send. Send Cut Send does have a minimum order. So if I go that route, I'd probably want to figure out if there's other things I need. Otherwise I have to just order multiple of these or pay extra for no reason. I ended up taking kind of a turn of direction here, going back to my, I don't know, plan A, fallback plan, not quite sure. I was hoping that other bracket would work out, and maybe if it was a thicker material, maybe it would work fine. Wasn't quite as good looking as I was expecting either. I mean, I wasn't expecting a piece of art or anything like that, but I kind of quickly came up with this aluminum angle bracket and cut this rod down to length. Gonna clean this up a little bit. So going with this route, it would end up looking like that, which doesn't stand out too bad. It's actually been a few days. I had to wait on a couple parts. I want to try and get the throttle linkage finished, but I did order new air horns. This is an old one, and these are fine. Like, they functioned okay. They're steel, like a chrome plated steel, I guess. And the problem is that they are too long for the thickness of air filter that I'm running. They wouldn't touch the air filter, but there wasn't a lot of clearance, like fractions of an inch between the end of the horn and the backside of the filter. So I ordered new ones. Annoyingly, as they get shorter, they seem to get more expensive. But now they're these nice billet aluminum pieces that are much shorter, so they're gonna fit in there great. I really do like just how these look. Kind of a shame that they're gonna be hidden behind the filter. But I think I'm gonna start with mounting these. I did discover there is a coolant leak on the back side of the engine. I think it's just one of the heater core hoses. I can't quite tell if it's the hose or this is the old engine, but there's this elbow fitting right here. When I put a mirror back there, I can tell it's dripping from the hose down the fitting and then off. I've tightened the hose clamp a whole bunch, like to the point where it's probably now causing a problem more than anything. But I think I might end up needing to replace that hose. Pretty sure I've replaced it before, but who knows? Maybe something got damaged along the way removing it. At least I hope that's all it is. I'm gonna worry about that another day though. Pretty low priority and not gonna be that exciting for you guys. But I did clean up the coolant that was on the ground underneath of it, and we'll see if it continues to leak or not. Let's get these installed real quick, and then we'll finish up throttle linkage. If you ever order things from Home Chef, they give you these little plastic containers that a lot of time different sauces or seasonings will come in. Hang on to them, because they're really good for nut and bolt storage, especially mid-project when you want to keep track of stuff. And then I had put some vinyl down here because the air filter with the old base plate would rub against here, and I really didn't want it to rub it through the paint, so peel that off real quick. All right, the final piece. Air filter on. Now to finish up throttle linkage. I've got to shorten this bolt just a little bit because it sticks out too far and it bottoms out in the cylinder head. The hole is about 7/8 of an inch deep, and I know it's not going to be threaded all the way down. So I'm going to measure and mark a 1/2 inch of stick out there, cut it down, and then go from there. I've got a second bolt if I screw up. There we go. And this guy. All right, we got the last piece to finish up the throttle linkage. So if we come in here, there are these turnbuckle connectors here that I'm hoping to shorten. I think if I change the angles of these, I'm gonna get kind of a slower throttle response at idle, which is what I would like. So the way this is set up, I think is fine cable-wise, but I'm gonna swap out these, which are actually remote controlled car parts, for these kind of longer pieces right here, so that I can make them shorter and angle these down a little bit. The reason for doing this is because right now they're about parallel with the ground. And when you think of the arc of a circle, if you have something parallel and it moves a few degrees, it's moving a lot in the vertical direction, but not a lot in the horizontal direction. So a little bit of angular movement is gonna move these throttle bodies basically as quickly as possible. Where if I angle it more, theoretically, we say straight down, and you change it a few degrees, there's basically no vertical movement. So it's not gonna pull up on those throttle blades as quickly. Try and point these down, basically point them straight at the throttle blades, and hopefully that'll get me the angle that I'm looking for. All right, so I've tried a few different setups just on this front here and not hooking up the rear set. First thing, there's 3 holes on this lever. The closer to the pivot point, the less movement there will be. the further out, the more movement, which means for the number of degrees it turns, it's further out, it'll move faster or move more distance compared to if it's in. So I moved it in one piece, and the thing you have to check when you do that is to make sure that you still have full throttle movement, because this cable is only going to move so far. And as you move it in, you have to move this further to get the same change in the throttle blades. The nice thing is there's plenty of pedal movement, so moving this in one doesn't affect too much. I've got the shorter turnbuckles on here, and it's just kind of a constant game of shifting and adjusting and tweaking things until it all lines up where you should. So now that that's loose, I can make sure that's where I want that. And now I'm going to connect this rear one. So that gets us full 100% throttle on both of those. Let's hit the pedal and see if it actually gets us there. So I've got a weight on the gas pedal, and it's extremely close. It's virtually all the way open. That little bit isn't going to be enough of a game changer. I could always move this down here. It would kind of have the opposite effect. As these move in, it moves these ends slower. As this moves it down, it'll move the whole linkage faster. So I think I'm going to leave this set up like this. When I fire it up and break it in, I'm going to have to adjust things and balance these anyways, so there'll be a little bit more fiddling. Revise throttle linkage, it's done. Really, I just have to put the battery in and I could start it. I do think, I was thinking about this more, I'll probably end up putting the catch can on it instead of the crankcase ventilation setup I've got right now, just because I don't want oil getting all over the place. I like the look of this cap, but I'll probably put a vented cap on it too, so I can run a hose to that catch can also. But throttle linkage is set up, at least to a point where we'll give it a try and see what we think. We have other lengths of turnbuckles that we can swap out too if we want to try something different. So we have options, which is nice. I did just look, and it looks like the coolant leak is no more. I think tightening that hose clamp down the other day did do the trick. I might still order a new hose, especially if I order a vented cap. The hose isn't that much, so I might just throw it in there to have it. It feels pretty crazy, but I think that is it. Throttle linkage done. Everything else is basically ready to go. The next things that I want to tackle on this is taking the drive shaft out, sending that off to get balanced, and then go through. I have every suspension bushing for this, and I want to swap that out too. Those aren't critical to doing the first start. So we'll see. I don't really know what the next few weeks are going to hold. We'll see what we come up with next time. It's going to be as much of a surprise to you as it is to me right now. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share this with Volvo friends that you know. Would love to get their input on anything I've been doing. Please check out the old videos that I've posted as well. I've been trying to do weekly updates on what I'm doing out here. Anything you guys can do to help share this helps me out a lot, and maybe we'll open up to some bigger projects in the future. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.